before.
Hello, you're watching RTD's English News Edition. Thank you for joining us on RTD. This is the top stories. The head of state flew to Turkey this morning. The President of the Republic received the General Director of the IMF, Christine Lagarde. The head of state, His Excellency Ismail Margeli, left today, Monday, after early afternoon, the capital to Turkey, where at the invitation of his counterpart, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he will carry out, starting tomorrow, Tuesday, an official visit of 48 hours. During this official visit to Turkey, the Djibouti head of state will meet with the main political authorities of this friendly country, including the President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the two peoples, as well as the ways and means to strengthen them further, will be at the heart of the discussions between President Gelle and his Turkish counterpart. The talks will also be extended to the strategic partnership between the two nations in the areas of economic and social development. Djibouti and Turkey collaborate together in almost all areas of activity, particularly in agriculture and water, higher education and health, evidence of the sustainable and efficiency cooperation that Turkey wants to maintain with the Republic of Djibouti. And this friendly country has already opened in Djibouti a Turkish Coordination and Cooperation Office, TAICA, and this is a structure whose creation principle was a part of the official visit of that President Erdogan made in January 2015 to Djibouti. An important delegation including the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, the Minister of Health, Mr. Jama Al-Miyouki, the Minister of Economy and Finances in charge of Industry, Yes Musidwali, and the Minister of Defense in charge of the relations with the Parliament, Ali Hassan Badun, accompanied the President as part of this official visit to Turkey. The head of state, His Excellency Ismail Margeli, received Monday mid-morning the General Director of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Mrs. Christine Lagarde, in a working visit in Djibouti since the day before yesterday, Saturday. Lagarde's visit to Djibouti is a clear sign of renewed interest in both major financial structures in our country, an increasingly important platform for transcontinental economic and trade exchanges. Djibouti has been characterized for several years by a continuous rate of growth, which is about 7% today. After her interview with President Gelle, told the national press the Director General of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, this is a good performance, she continued, before mentioning the motivation of her institution to provide all the support needed to consolidate Djibouti's economic and financial development. In addition to Mr. Yes Musidwali, the Minister of Budget, Mr. Bouda Ahmed Roubli, the Minister of the Presidency in charge of Investment, Ali Ghedi Abakar, the Secretary General of the Presidency, Mohamed Abdullah Wais, and the Governor of the Central Bank, Ahmed Osman, took part in the meeting between the President of the Republic and the Director of the International Monetary Fund. The Minister of Economy and Finance in charge of Industry, Ilyas Musidwali, who also spoke in the same press briefing for his part, described the displacement of Mrs. Lagarde to Djibouti as a clear sign of the positive evolution of our country economically and financially. The transformations undertaken in our country under the leadership of our President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margeli, are such today that the leaders of the world's main economic and financial institutions are interested in its development. He indicates, we are convinced that a greater emphasis on our collaboration with the International Monetary Fund will open our country to more new economic opportunities, he said. The delegation of the International Monetary Fund, led by its CEO, Christine Lagarde, and has this morning at the Campiski Hotel an expanded meeting with the party in the presence of several members of the government, including the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, the representative of the private sector publics of the country as well. This conference was held in order to exchange between the two parties on the different aspects of the economic development of Djibouti. It had for main theme keeping trade and technology for inclusive growth. This conference was to aware the opportunities related to trade and growth made by technology. The discussions organized in the form of a panel dialogue around the first part on the trade opportunities. The interventions of different experts on the podium have covered questions about trade, transshipment and industries to stimulate economic growth, accompanying policies and administrative reforms that should help to attenuate costs and ensure benefits are distributed, and appear the role of trade in the cruise that could facilitate the creation of jobs. The second part of the discussions focused on the development of technology for inclusive growth. The IMF Director General Christine Lagarde attended the high-level trade and technology forum this morning after visiting the Assal Lake tourist sites, which she cruelly appreciated. She said in her speech, the Republic of Djibouti is on the right track in terms of economic growth by following the paths borrowed from cities like Singapore and Dubai. And the Prime Minister took the floor to announce that the presence of the Director General of the IMF in Djibouti is a sign of encouragement for diversification of Djiboutian economy, is also a testimony of the progress made by the governments of the President of the Republic. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margili, received today late Monday morning at the Presidential Palace the Ambassador of France to Djibouti, Christophe Guillou, at the head of a large military delegation. The relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the two peoples, as well as the ways and means of promoting them and developing them further, were mentioned during this meeting. Discussions then focused on military cooperation and the strategic partnership between the two nations in the field of defense. It is worth remembering that our country is home to the largest French military base in Africa. The Minister of Defense in charge of relations with Parliament, Ali Hassan Badoun, took part in these talks. You know that also the presence at this meeting of the Chief of General Staff of the Djiboutian Armed Forces, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, and the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Djiboutian Armed Forces, General Tahir Mohammed. The Council of Ministers of IGAD, to which the Minister of Foreign Affairs took part in Addis Ababa, the 59th extraordinary session of the Council of Ministers of IGAD was held in Addis on December 17 at the headquarters of the African Union. This session was dedicated to the revitalization of the peace process in South Sudan. This important meeting precedes the revitalization forum and will take place here in Addis from 18 to 21 December to save the peace and suffering of the people of this country. The foreign minister of our country has made an important speech to restore peace and enable the people of South Sudan to live in peace. When we are accompanied by the ambassador of Djibouti to Ethiopia and permanent representative to the AU and the director of Diplomatic Center of the Deputy Director of International Organizations and the Second Council of the Embassy of Djibouti in Ethiopia. The top UN diplomat arrived by sea with Minister of the Interior, Hassan Omar Mohammed, Minister of Health, Jamal Mulkiya, Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, and many other people in the United Nations system and senior officials in the health department. The ministerial delegation and the UN diplomat were welcomed by the region's prefect Hassan Dabale and the region council chairman, as well as numerous representatives of higher local authorities. Note also the presence of many officials who were part of the trip to the image of the ambassador of Djibouti in Switzerland, Mrs. Qadra Ahmed Hassanou, representative of UNHCR Abdullahi Barri, the representative of IOM Lajni Vassami, Honorary Executive Secretary Hussein Hassan Darar, but also in the presence of the UNHCR Special Envoy for Somali Refugees, Ambassador Muhammad Abdi Faye. The delegation's convoy then traveled to Camp Merkazi, which hosted the welcoming ceremony in honor of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi. The people of Hayu mixed with the resident refugees in the camp and has mobilized massively to form a hedge of honor to offer a warm welcome and memorable welcome to their distinguished guests. The welcome ceremony took place in an atmosphere of communion and celebration, during which Mr. Gandhi and the delegation enjoyed a crowd pleasing. As well as in his words of welcome, the prefect of the region thanked the people of Abag for their mobilization, which demonstrates the high level of their attention to Yemeni refugees fleeing war in their homeland. In his statement, the High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Filippo Grandi, reiterated his immense satisfaction of openness and hospitality policy advocates and defended the high peak by the Djibouti state. Mr. Gandhi has also had a long history of hospitality, with a single example of compassion and brotherhood of Djiboutians in the place of Holhol in Aliade. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports welcomed the Djiboutian government's further progress in granting additional benefits and new opportunities through the adoption of the new refugee status, which implements durable and sustainable solutions for the inclusion of refugees in the Republic of Djibouti. For his part, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mukir, recalled the clear and far-sighted directives issued by His Excellency the President of the Republic, who tirelessly works for the protection of displaced persons in general and refugees in particular in the field of integral health care in the same way as the host community. The Minister also said that these new directives correspond to the commitments made by the head of the state of Djibouti during the summit of leaders and through the adoption of the Declaration of New York in September 2016. And finally, the Minister of the Interior recalled the commitment and efforts of the Djiboutian government, which has been steadily reinforced in the welcome and inclusion in the Republic of Djibouti since the accession to independence. On the sidelines of this ceremony, Mr. Gandhi received many cases of traditional art objects to immortalize his memorable visit to Obok from ministerial delegation and the Minister of the Health, Jama Mukhi. Thereafter, the High Commissioner for Refugees visited Yemeni refugee families to inquire visual about their living conditions in the Markazi camp. Let's recall that the camp Markazi currently has more than 2,000 refugees, having their country in Yemen since the outbreak of the war in 2015. Mr. Gandhi took this opportunity to thank the government and the people of Djibouti for their openness and welcome of Yemeni refugees. And finally, the ministerial delegation and their guests visited the Migrant Transit Center, which is managed by IOM, in the presence of the representative of the International Organization for Migrants. During this interview, the High Commissioner for Refugees was able to see for himself the various activities of the center with regard to the protection of migrants. This morning, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohamed Kamil, received in his cabinet the ministerial representative of UNICEF in Djibouti, Jenebu Mahont. The Secretary of State, surrounded by his close associates, in this case technical advisor and the Inspector General, expressed satisfaction at welcoming the UN diplomat in charge of the protection and development of the child. The UNICEF representative, enjoying the warm welcome, first stressed the sustainability of the mission of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports in the context of national development prospects. The discussions focus on new partnership program between UNICEF and the State Secretariat in 2018 on ways and means to promote sport and youth development in Djibouti in several fields. The Minister did not fail to emphasize that the community development centers can constitute pools of youth and therefore platforms for social integration and socio-professional integration. For the Minister, the community development centers are privileged places of conversion of young people in permanent contact with the neighboring populations. And on the international news, Turkey intends to open an embassy in East Jerusalem. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Sunday, days after leading calls at the summit of Muslim leaders for the world to recognize the capital of Palestine. The Muslim Nation Summit was a response to U.S. President Donald Trump's December 6 decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. His move broke with decades of U.S. policy international consensus that the city's status must be left to Israel and Palestinian peace negotiations. Erdogan said in a speech to members of his AK party in the southern province of Karaman that Turkey's Consul General in Jerusalem was well represented by an ambassador. And that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on RTD channel. Have a good night.